do have a little bit of breaking news here. President-elect Trump has just announced on his Truth Social account that he is picking Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to... Well, Julie, let's talk about some of the picks that you just ran through. Matt Gaetz, Tulsi Gabbard, Pete Hegseth. Do you think that they are confirmable at this point? What's the buzz on the Hill right now?
Oh, boy.
I mean, I would describe it as God-tier level trolling to just trigger a full-on China syndrome to own the libs in perpetuity.
I love it. To own the libs in perpetuity. There's Senator Fetterman talking about the appointment of Matt Gaetz there as Attorney General. I mean, people are just apoplectic. Certainly at The View, certainly at Disney, certainly at MSNBC, certainly at CNN, just everywhere you go. I want to get to some of this View news in just a moment, but let's take a look here. Because, you know, it was one thing to have Pete Hegseth out in front. Remember Joy flipping out about that?
The former and future president is moving quickly to fill the clown car and round out his cabinet before he changes his mind and fires them all. Moments ago, Trump announced that he has selected Fox Weekend morning show host, you can't make this up, Pete Hegseth, to serve as Secretary of Defense, because why not?
Yeah, why not? Why not? Because, you know, Pete actually has a pretty decent background. You know, I was surprised too, right? Like full on surprised. I'm not going to kid you because, you know, he's a TV person like me. I know him really well. He used to come on my show. I think he's a great guy. I think he's really smart. And then, like, I thought about it for about 40 minutes. And I was like, actually, this does make a lot of sense because he's going to help the military. He's going to make the military kind of like aspirational again. He's passionate about his patriotism. He's a loyal supporter of Donald Trump. And he's very concerned about our troops. He's also smart. He was a Wall Street analyst. He went to Harvard. He went to Princeton. And yeah, the guy got 2 bronze medals. And yet you get these idiots out there in D.C. saying stuff like this.
And the suggestion that the Department of Defense should be led by the host of Fox and Friends on weekends as his main contribution to society is scary to our soldiers who need the best and brightest at the helm.
Now, you know what's scary to our soldiers? Is that you, buddy, a Democrat representative, are out there knocking someone that you don't even know. I would say, get to know him. Look at his resume. Look at what he's done. Look at how much he cares for the country. And you know what? So what if we get away from the bureaucrats? Isn't that the idea? Isn't that why America, I was going to say hired, but they voted for Donald Trump? You know, I can't get out of my business zone. I'm thinking hired, business. We need a CEO. I'll tell you, though, keep in mind, and we got a lot to get to today, keep in mind that all of a sudden, Pete Hegseth is looking as though he's some kind of prom king, right? Like Tulsi and Pete are looking tame compared to this little number.
All right, we've got another Trump appointment, and this is one that is probably going to surprise a lot of people because he was not on any of the lists that were floating around out there. And there had been some discussion that President-elect Trump was having trouble making this final decision, or maybe this is the person he had in mind all along. But he has now nominated Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz as Attorney General of the United States. He just wrote this
so cue the fury. I mean, immediately, right? Everybody's phones blowing up. It was pretty funny to see the reaction, for example, over on MSNBC, where the reporter didn't really quite know how to characterize this.
Well, Julie, let's talk about some of the picks that you just ran through. Matt Gaetz, Tulsi Gabbard, Pete Hegseth. Do you think that they are confirmable at this point? What's the buzz on the Hill right now?
Well, I mean, I hope you don't forgive me for saying this, Kristen, but the general vibe on the Hill right now is WTF. People are shocked at the news of Gaetz, especially. I feel like I couldn't even get around to getting reaction on Tulsi Gabbard when this pick of Gaetz came down the pike. Senators, Republican lawmakers even, one of them in a closed-door meeting said, oh my God, when they saw the post from Donald Trump. Several senators, I just ran into Lindsey Graham, for example, who kind of brushed me off and said he didn't speak to Trump yet. We'll see, he said, if Gaetz is confirmable, if he's a a good pick. Chuck Grassley, who's going to be the top Republican on the Judiciary Committee, working very closely with the next Attorney General. He really didn't have anything to say. He stood there for 30 seconds just completely baffled when reporters told him about this. Others like Collins, Murkowski, those who are seen to deflect from whatever Trump tries to do, their press handlers basically pushing us aside. And it is because look at who Gaetz is. He's currently under investigation by the House Ethics Committee for some of these personal misgivings that he's been a part of, some of the things that the federal government has investigated him on and later dropped charges on. He is still very much being investigated by that House committee. Bipartisan sentiment across the aisle is they really can't believe that Gaetz is the one who ended up with this top job.
So she's not entirely wrong, right? A lot of the establishment Republicans, here's Cornyn, for example, just shocked at this news.
We're talking about recess
On the issue of vetting, though, how critical is it then to have access to what the House Ethics Committee has found in their investigation?
I think there should not be any limitation on the Senate Judiciary Committee's investigation, including whatever the House Ethics Committee has generated.
So you want to see it?
Absolutely.
So all of a sudden, maybe like everybody else is kind of seeming like, they're Rhodes Scholars. I mean, is there a method to the madness? Because there is a lot of anger out there, right? A lot of anger. Maybe this is some kind of epic troll move. I love it.
I mean, I would describe it as God tier level trolling to just trigger a full-on China syndrome to own the libs in perpetuity.
Yeah. Well, he's happy about it. Donald Trump was very, very happy about this announcement. New York Times has a whole deep dive on how it went down. Apparently, the two of them were on a plane and they spoke for some 2 hours. And finally, he came to the determination that it would be Matt Gaetz as his AG because he wants somebody who's got his back. He wants to send a message loud and clear. He's sending it, right? Like, I think everybody's hearing it. Now the question becomes, is this the fight that takes up all the energy? And therefore he gets Pete through, he gets Tulsi through, he gets everyone else through while everyone gets distracted by this. McCarthy already coming out. He's in Singapore at a Bloomberg conference there. And he sat down with one of the reporters and he sort of nonchalantly said, yeah, there's no way this is going to happen. And to her credit, she picked up on it. I want you to hear the answer.
Choices are very good except one. Look, Gaetz won't get confirmed. Everybody knows that. But when you look at a Rubio, just the knowledge that he has, being in the Intel Committee, I was on the Gang of Eight, and his understanding, even when you listen to the other side of the aisle, they say, he'll make a great Secretary of State. So that's strong for me. A Waltz, just his background, from a Green Beret and others being the. But John Radcliffe at CIA, former DNI, that's very strong. And the difference is to what was 8 years ago today, President Trump understands the job. He knows the people that he needs around him to get there. And I think he's going to be much better prepared because he only has one term, but he'll hit the ground running this time.
You say Gaetz will not be confirmed. Why bother with the nomination then?
You can talk to the president, but it's a good deflection from others, but it also gives. I'll let it stand with that.
No.
I'll let it stand at that. It's kind of a clever thing for him to say. It's sort of surprising. He's like, there's no way this is going to happen. I mean, he's not even like giving any kind of anything to this. And that's what we're hearing, like over and over and over again. People are, yeah, no way. And John Bolton's going on about it. A lot of people are like, oh, that's good. If John Bolton hates it, maybe we like it. But it certainly is acting as a kind of distraction, if you would, having Matt Gaetz in there. And I know a lot of you guys love him. It does send a message. It's not clear whether he'll be able to get through the confirmation. I think that is going to be a hurdle. And what I am somewhat disappointed by, I'm going to be perfectly honest here, is that we're going to have a divided Republican Party going into this. And you know what? We cannot have a divided Republican Party. I mean, already you get some inklings of it because Thune got the gig as opposed to, say, Scott. People thought Rick Scott was going to get it. And he was out in the first round because it's a secret ballot. So it tells you there's this tension there. Now, maybe the tension is good. I'm not going to completely, you know what? I'm always glass half full, and we're going into an amazing time, an exciting time. And so I want to stay optimistic here. But, there's always a method to the madness. Believe it or not, whether Trump realizes it in real time, sometimes I don't even know. It's just his instinct. And his instinct is telling him, okay, I'm going to put this guy in. And then, good luck going after the rest of my peeps. good luck going after. I mean, they're all over Tom Homan, right?
Mr. Homan, you work for me. I'm a taxpayer. I'm a taxpayer. You work for me.
Tom Homan's going to be running the Border Patrol, ladies and gentlemen. People are kind of upset about that. Tulsi Gabbard is another one that they're so upset about. In fact, you're just hearing rattlings all the time. Oh, she's compromised. I'm like, didn't we hear that with Hillary Clinton? Like, haven't we been through that already? Anyway, here's General Marks back for a moment to Matt Gaetz.
Joining us now to discuss this, CNN military analyst and retired U.S. Army Major General James Spider Marks. General, thank you so much for being with us. There are current and former senior military commanders who have described this cabinet pick as ridiculous and a, quote, effing nightmare. What do you make of this decision?
Well, by resume, Pete Hegseth inarguably is not qualified for the position. We need to thank him for his service to the nation. He's been in combat a couple times, I think. So good on him for that. But he has been at a tactical level, which is essential. In other words, at the front lines, in direct action, whether it's on his officer record brief or not, but he has been in those positions. When you look at the body of his contributions, he's never led a large organization. He's certainly not been in the D.C. apparatus, and certainly the Department of Defense is a monstrous, huge bureaucracy that doesn't necessarily embrace those that walk in and take over. There will be resistance and hesitation. And so the key ingredient there is to understand where he can provide the best influential leadership, to include DOD is doing what needs to be done to meet the president's obligations and the National Security Council's obligations to maintain our security globally. On the surface, you look at that and you go, I don't know that he's got the skills to do that. But let's assume for a second, he's a smart guy, he's enthusiastic, he wants to do the right thing, but you have to be a little bit skeptical and dig pretty deep to find those qualifications that would give you confidence that he's going to be the right guy to step up.
What do you think he would mean for the culture in the military? And I'm talking specifically, I mean, I don't know.
He'd be good. Like, he'd be good. He'd be good for the culture, okay? Because you know what? I'm getting a little bit sick of the TikTok transgender memes where they're trying to recruit for the Navy. I mean, seriously, come on. Like, you cannot have a woke military. You just can't. Like, there's some things in life, I'm sorry, this is pretty darn basic. You know what? Pete gets it. He's talked about this. Let me see if I can show you this, because he's gone on podcasts. And actually, CNN's like all over him for this. Oh my gosh, he doesn't want women in combat. Hell no. I'm a woman. Do you think I want to be in combat? You know, there are certain limitations. I'm sorry. This gets back to the sports thing. You know, the women's track. You get people that were originally born as men trying to compete against women. No. And you know what? Women do not belong in combat. I'm glad that our Department of Defense Secretary actually would understand that.
I'm straight up just saying we should not have women in combat roles. It hasn't made us more effective, hasn't made us more lethal, has made fighting more complicated. We've all served with women, and they're great. It just, our institutions don't have to incentivize that in places where not traditionally, over human history, men in those positions are more capable.
They are. Okay, so like, why are we like remaking City Hall? Why are you fighting City Hall? Listen, we went way too far left because of the insanity in academia and the insanity in the media and the insanity in Hollywood, which right now is trying to right the ship. I mean, Rachel Zegler, Snow White, she may soon be out of a job. Whoopi Goldberg may be out of a job. The View may be done. We're going to get to all that. But those people were so crazy and so left that, you know what, they brought this on themselves. There's a funny clip I'm going to show you later in the program of Katie Couric and Peppermint Patty, what is her name? Psaki, the former press secretary for Biden, just trying to figure out how on earth could it be that Kamala, the revered Kamala, lost this election. I'll tell you, it's this kind of arrogance, and we're seeing this arrogance all over again with these appointments. So perhaps there's a method to the madness. Perhaps Donald Trump figured he'd have a little fun and kind of scare them all. And believe me, he's scaring them all. And this way he gets to everybody else he wants. Maybe he does get Matt Gaetz. But I'll tell you, it sends a signal. It sends a signal kind of similar to the signal that we saw Mike Davis sending to Letitia James quite recently, right? Saying, hey, sweetheart, you better knock it off. Letitia James being the attorney that's going after Donald Trump with everything she's got, constantly trying to somehow bankrupt him or put him in jail. This is all she's about. Well, I'll tell you, you know what? This is catching up with these people. The lawfare insanity, the cultural insanity, the inflation that they drove with their Inflation Reduction Act. You know what? America's had enough. We're over it. It's over, right? Carville knows it.
I told Adam DeGurney, we didn't even get a chance to kick the tires. We just said, you're buying the car, and you have no choice. And, of course, we bought the car. And I think if this campaign is reducible to one moment, we're in a 65% wrong track country. The country wants something different. And she's asked, as so often the case, in a friendly audience on The View, how would you be different than Biden? That's the one question that you exist to answer. All right? That is it. That's the money question. That's the one you want. That's the one that everybody wants to know the answer to. And you freeze. You literally freeze and say, well, I can't think of anything. And once you get in it, so we said 65% want something different. We are just not going to give in to them, but maybe the odiousness of Trump combined with the Dobbs decision, we can overcome it. Well, we didn't overcome it. But when we go back and history unearths this, it's going to be right there on The View. And I think her name was Sunny Houston or whatever.
Yeah, Sunny, who's still feeling kind of cloudy these days. I mean, she's one of the reasons that The View is where it is right now. She's the reason why Disney's like, oh my gosh, we got to get rid of this stuff, right? We got to get rid of our streaming networks. Same thing's going on, by the way, over at NBC. Where Mike Kavanaugh's like, okay, we want to roll all these things up and we're going to spin them off. That includes the Oprah Network. Oprah, who allegedly got $1 million. Chicago Tribune just did a total takedown of her because of this, because Harpo Productions was on the payroll too. All these people were on the payroll. Why do you think Letitia James was so doing what she was doing? Trying to fine the president to the point where she would put him forever behind bars or in bankruptcy. I mean, I love it. Mike Davis kind of giving us a little precursor to a little bit of the AG stuff, right, with Matt Gaetz, because you can see Matt Gaetz saying the exact same thing. Letitia James, you want to do this?
So as you can see, we know their playbook. We know Project 2025 before it was even published.
Blah, 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 blah. Okay, Letitia, you're on notice. I mean, I don't know if it's going to be AG Matt Gaetz, but you're on notice. Listen.
Let me just say this to Big Tish James, the New York Attorney General. I dare you to try to continue your lawfare against President Trump in his second term, because listen here, sweetheart, we're not messing around this time. And we will put your fat ass in prison for conspiracy against rights. And I promise you.
Okay, so this is part of why he's appointing Matt Gaetz. He wants to send a message to everybody that, you know what, we're not going to play this game again. We've been there, done that. Let's move on. Let's actually move on as a nation, because there's a lot of good stuff that we can do. We can fix this nasty, messy situation that they have put us in from a cultural perspective, from a border perspective, from a national security perspective, and from, dare I say, an economic perspective. In other words, sure, I know the market's done okay, but what if you actually had a strong economy behind that market? Now we're talking, right? This is one of the reasons the market's just been on a tear, really, really on a tear. So much so that, Rob, my colleague over at 76 Research, and I decided we wanted to come up with a guide for all of you. It's totally free. Go and check it out. You can go to 76 Research and scroll all the way down to the bottom, or let me see if I can get you another link here. This one's maybe a little bit easier to see. Yeah, investinmaga.com. Invest in MAGA, right? What is the future? It is MAGA. This is a MAGA economy. This is MAGAnomics. And there's going to be a lot of opportunity. We saw Bitcoin hit 93K yesterday. I mean, look, it's really, really volatile. Later on in the show, I'm actually going to be joined by Max Baker, who is the president of American Heart for Gold, one of our great sponsors here on the show. And I just want to talk to him a little bit about how we should think about inflation in the next 6 months to 4 years. But this is the key. Go check it out. Just get it. It's free. We put all the sectors there. We've got some names for you. Invest in MAGA.com. If you want to get the portfolios at 76research.com, you can do that. Founders Club, I advise you to do, because it's the best one. You get all the portfolios and all the names and all the future portfolios. Anyway, that's my company. Invest in MAGA.com. 76 Research is my baby. And I created this, really, I mean, for you guys, because I knew that there would be a lot of opportunity. And there has been a lot of opportunity, but the opportunity is going to get even better in this environment.